Welcome back. In this lesson, we're going to talk about looking for paint work, or more specifically, let me say looking for repainted panels or for repainted parts of the car. Now, why would we want to look for this, and why would we care about this? Well, there are several reasons. If you see a part of the car that has been repainted, first off, you want to notice it because that is a possible warning sign that the car might have been in an accident. Because why would you repaint part of the car? There are a number of reasons, but it usually happens because some type of damage has happened to that part of the car. Very often that will be some type of a crash or an accident. And so you want to know about that. So if, say, this has been repainted, maybe the car was hit, and then I want to look very carefully at that part of the car for other signs of damage and make sure there's no, structural damage, make sure the frame hasn't been damaged. And so that warning sign of prior paint work is going to give me an indication that I need to look very carefully at that part of the car. Now, there's some other reasons that you care about repainted panels as well. One of them is that factory quality paint is normally very good. Usually the manufacturers do a great job of having a very clean, very well prepared surface, and then they in the factory paint that car with a high quality paint. It goes on smooth. You have a really good finish that tends to last for many, many years. Now, unfortunately, most body shops, and I won't say all because it is possible to do outstanding body work and paint work, and some shops do excellent work. However, your typical shop rushes through the work. They're in a hurry to get job after job quickly done, just to collect the money from job after job, make as much money as quickly as possible by doing fast jobs. And so because of that, they rush, they just prepare the car very quickly. If there's body work, they do it very quickly, very hastily. They don't prepare things properly. They don't do the best work. And then when they paint, they're often sloppy with it. Often they don't get the panel cleaned very well, or they don't have a very clean area to do the paint work. And so the paint really isn't that good. Often it doesn't match the rest of the car perfectly in color. Sometimes, if you just buy the car hastily, and then maybe a couple of weeks later, you're washing the car and you start looking at it and you're like, oh my goodness, this part of the car doesn't quite match. The color is slightly different. Or the rest of the car is very smooth and shiny, and I realize that this part of the car is kind of dull and the texture isn't right. It doesn't look too good. And now you feel kind of bad because you thought you bought a really nice car, and now you found out that part of the car really doesn't look that great. So just how nice it looks is a concern. Another one, if the work is not done well, if the surface is not prepared well, many times down the road, a number of things will start happening, such as sometimes the paint will start peeling, sometimes the paint simply does not last and it'll need to be repainted again. And that's something you don't want to have to deal with either, because if you could have bought for the same price a car that had not been in an accident, a car that had great quality paint that's going to last for many years, that would be a much better choice than paying the same money for a different car that has a lot of poor quality paint work done on it that's going to maybe start peeling off after a couple of years and have to be redone. So those are the few reasons you would care about it. Now, how can you see it? Because we're talking about looking for paint. There's another lesson where we talk about feeling for paint work. You often can feel it, but often it can be seen with your bare eyes. And if you can see it with your bare eyes, chances are the paint work was not really great quality, and that's something you want to know. Either to possibly avoid buying that car, or to consider, you know what, if there are two cars, one is really nice and has not had an accident, has not had paint work done, and there's another one that has had prior repairs that aren't the greatest, well, would I like to save some money? Would I be willing to buy that car that isn't quite as nice for a cheaper price? Maybe. If that makes sense to you, great. As long as you know what you're buying, that's what I say. But should you pay the same price for both of those cars? My thought would be no. Would I pay the same price? I would not. As a professional, I would buy either the nice car, or I would, if I consider the other car, make sure that I was getting it at a cheaper, fairer price for what I'm actually getting. All right, so how do you see paint work? You simply want to look very carefully at the paint. I just mean look really closely. You're going to move your eyes up close to the panel. You're going to just really look at it, move your head a little bit, let the light reflect off of it, and look very, very carefully for anything that doesn't look quite perfect. Now, some things you'll be looking for. Sometimes, very often, when a panel's been repainted in the shop, when they repainted it, they get ready to paint, but they don't get it super, super clean. There may be little impurities on the surface. Could be like little flakes of dust, little pieces of dirt, sometimes like a bug that landed on it. They paint over that, and when the paint hardens, there are little specks in the paint, like little bumps. Sometimes you can feel them, and you can often see them. And you're like, whoa, what's that in the paint? Well, it hardened over a speck of dust, or it hardened over a bug, it hardened over some dirt, and that is visible. It will just never go away because it's dried into the paint and you can see it. Another thing, if the car has been in an accident, maybe there was a big dent, what a lot of times they would do is they'll put some body filler on that dent, which is just like imagine like Play-Doh, put it on there and smooth it out, but it hardens up hard. It's usually made out of plastic. There's some fiberglass fillers and some plastic fillers, but you put them on there, let them harden up, you kind of sand them out to try to get it smooth to match the panel. Well, they usually do that in a hurry, especially if you're not getting the work done at a really, really high quality shop. They sand it out very quickly, and often from that sandpaper, you'll see scratches through the filler. And then when they paint over it, those scratch lines that are sanded into the filler, they actually show through in the paint, and you can see them. Another thing you often will see on poor quality work will be paint runs. They spray very quickly. Maybe the person painting is not really the highest quality professional. They get the paint on too thick, and it starts to actually run down the panel, and it hardens, and you will actually see paint runs hardened into the surface. And so again, that's something that doesn't look good, and it's also a sign of not really high quality paint work, and you want to see that. All right, so let's take a look. This particular car we're looking at, as I look at it, I look at the fender and I can see the paint is very, very smooth. It has a very uniform texture to it. It looks like factory paint. I can tell that just by looking at it. But as I look up to this next panel, I can see several signs that this has been repainted, and some of them are very obvious. I want to point out a couple of them. First off, you can see some paint that has gotten onto this plastic part. Now, this would not have happened in the factory. How this would have happened would be a body shop put some tape on there trying to tape it off, and then they paint over the car while this piece is still on there. Now, a really, really good body shop would have actually taken this off before they did the paint work. But kind of a lower quality shop, they're in a hurry, they try to do it fast, they just put some tape over there, try to cover it, and they paint. And then when they peel the tape off afterwards, sometimes you'll see that some overspray has gotten onto the trim. So this has definitely been repainted. I can tell just by seeing that evidence right there. Now, some other things you can actually see. It's easy to see in person. It may be hard to see in the camera, but the texture is a little bit rough, and it doesn't match the fender. This is super smooth and shiny. This has kind of a rough texture to it. It doesn't match. So this is not a factory finish right there. Another thing is this very same panel, like up here it's smoother, but down here it's rougher, so it's not very consistent. The factory paint is very smooth and consistent all the way through. The repainted panel, parts of it are smoother, parts of it are rougher. It doesn't quite match. Another thing, right up here, you can see there's a pit. What this would have been like a rock chip probably happened, like the paint got chipped before it was painted, and instead of smoothing it down, getting it really perfect, they just painted right over it, and so you can see that the chip has actually been painted over, and now that presents as a pit in the paint that hopefully you can see on the camera right there at the end of my fingertip. Now as I travel on back, there are other things I can see in this panel as well. Like here, I can see lots of little specks in the paint. Now, these are kind of hard to see on the camera, but in person, if you look carefully, there's a speck, a speck, a speck. Now, these are impurities, like little pieces of dust, things like that were on the panel when they painted it in a hurry, and this is not what you would see in factory paint. All right, so what I've done now is I've opened the door. And you can also see here kind of a line down through there. This is something that you can feel, but you can also see it. And what this is where when this panel was repainted, they put some masking tape over it and then they sprayed it. And so when they peel it off, it kind of leaves a line that it doesn't come off, it doesn't wash off. It's visible, it's something you can see, but this is a sign that this was repainted. Now, the impurities and imperfections in the paint that I'm trying to show you, it's really hard to capture those the best on camera or video. They show up much easier in person. So just trust me when I tell you this. They're usually very easy to see if you just really pay attention and really look very, very closely at the paint of the car. You'll see them. So have confidence and just go out and look at every panel of the car very, very, very carefully.